Hello everyone! Today we're going to look at a C++ program that reads a list of integers from a file and then outputs them in reverse order. Let's get into the code. Okay, so first let's look at the program. It says, write a program that reads in a list of integers from a file until a -1 is encountered. Inserts each integer to a linked list, then traverses the linked list to print out the values in the reverse order to the console. Okay, so first off, let's start by importing the necessary libraries. For this program, we're going to need to include the libraries IOStream for basic input and output, and we're going to need to include fstream, which is going to be necessary for opening the files. Alright, so then next up, we're going to define our node struct. This is basically going to be how we define how each node acts and what values they carry. So to do this, we would define it struct node. We're going to open a curly bracket, int data. It's what we're going to call the variable for our data values. And then we're going to define a pointer. This pointer we're going to call next. Okay, so basically what we're doing here is I want you to picture what we've created is kind of like a canvas where we can create nodes that are going to hold data as an integer, and they're going to have a pointer called next, which is going to point to something. Okay, so now that we've gone over that, let's go over the next part. So we're going to define our head. So for that, we're just going to do node head. Don't forget the star. And we're going to make it equal to null. Since it's the beginning of our list and our list is empty, we're just going to make it point to nothing. So what we've done here is created a pointer, if you will, represented by h, pointing to null, nothing. Okay, so next up, we're going to open the file. To do this, we're going to do ifstream, and we're going to name the variable of our stream file. So for this example, we're going to use fin. Then we're going to do fin.open and the name of the file. In this case, our file is named input.txt. So this is going to open the file, which if you were to do this on a computer, it would have to be under the same directory as your program. Okay, now we have to check if the file is open. Now to do this, we're going to do an if statement where if fin not open, we're going to open our curly bracket, cout can't open file. This is basically going to tell us if the fin is not, then print out file can't open and return -1. And this would close our program and print out file can open if you can't open the file. Next up, we're going to grab the first integer from our file. To do this, we're going to do int num. So we're going to declare a variable where we're going to store that first integer. And we're going to do fin goes to num. So this basically grabs the first line from your file and stores it in num. Next up, we're going to create a while loop to actually traverse the entire file and store them into a linked list. So like I said, I'm going to use a while loop, and I'm going to do while number does not equal -1, since that's where we want to stop grabbing integers. We're going to open this loop. And for starters, we're going to declare a temporary variable. A temporary node. We're going to call it node temp. And we're going to make this equal to new node. So with this new node line right here, what we've done is we've created a new node that is empty, which is pointed to by temp. And I'm actually going to draw head here, as we've talked about previously, equal to null. Now, next up is we want to store the data values in our node. To do this, we want to access the temp with this arrow, the temp's data, and we're going to make that equal to num, which is currently storing the first integer from our file. And we want to do temp next is going to equal head. So what this is basically saying is whatever head is pointing to, make next point to that. And our num, like we said, it's going to be our first integer, which in this case from our list is 4. All right, and to finish off, we're going to do head equals temp, which is going to make that last node we just added now the new head. The reason we want to do that is so that head can point towards the last node, aka so we can later on print the list in reverse order. And before we close off our loop, we're going to do fin next number. Alright, so what this is basically doing is going to reiterate through the list until it's done. Just so you guys can get it, we're going to draw it out. So when this loop starts again, it goes node temp equals new node. So then when you're creating a new node for temp, it's going to stop pointing towards the last node and it's going to start all over again. So now temp node is going to equal to a new node, storing the new number, which the next number is going to be 42. And then the next off of this one is going to point towards head. So we see how that's the method we use to connect the nodes one with one another. And then last off, head now points towards the last node we added. And so the process starts all over again. Temp, new node. So now temp is equal to a new node, which is going to store the next integer, which is going to be in this case -12. And then the next is going to point towards whatever head is pointing to. And now head points towards this new node. So I hope you guys can understand now how we're connecting the nodes in a way where it leaves head as the last node so that we can traverse the list on our next step. So this next part, we're going to do a new pointer, which is going to traverse the list. Since we know head is pointing towards the last node, we know we can just do node ptr, which is what we're going to call our pointer that is going to traverse the list, equal to head. And then we're going to start a loop to go through the whole thing. So we're going to do while, and then ptr does not equal null is going to go through the loop. The reason we want to make it equal not null is, as we recall right here, null is our end of our list. So inside the loop, you want to print out the data inside of the pointer. So to do this, you're going to do pointer data. So basically whatever ptr is pointing to, and since we know it's pointing to the same thing as head given our previous line of code, ptr is going to print out the data, which in this case, let's say it's -12. And then what we want to do is move it on to the next one. To do that, we're just going to do ptr equals ptr next. What this basically does is now after it's printed out the current data of our pointer, it's going to go, okay, so now ptr is going to be equal to whatever the current pointer's next is equal to. And just to give you guys another example, and so now ptr is going to be equal to the next node, okay? And basically that's the end of it. Make sure we close down with some curly brackets, And now all we got to do is close our file. And we're going to return 0. And that's how you read integers from a file and print them out in reverse order. I hope you found this explanation helpful. If you have any other questions, guys, just leave them down in the comments below. Thank you, like and subscribe.